Good afternoon. After 3 weeks of classwork, we come to the final day, and the first and most natural question is, what was the major point brought out during this classwork, or what were the major points? What of the classwork shall we carry away with us for practice? And of course, there were many of the basic points of spiritual living brought out that either must be referred to in whatever notes you made or in reminders from these tape recordings, since it would be impossible to sum up the entire 3 weeks of work in one day, even the major points of it. And so it is only possible to remind you of a few, so that these will be given the opportunity to bring to your consciousness others that you've received and that you have there, and that will come to light as you ponder even the few that you can remember. The first and most important thing I would like to say is this: if you can remember only one point, that one point, regardless of which it may be, is your entrance into heaven. That is, into harmony, into perfection, into some measure of spiritual realization. It is only necessary to have one point of spiritual truth, because the putting into practice of that one point will lead all of the others to unfold in their natural order. There is an ancient saying to the effect that if a teacher gives the student one leg of the table and they're not equipped to add the other three themselves, they're not worthy of being students of the Spirit. And so it is in this work that if you have one point and ponder it and meditate on it, think of it, put it into use and practice, it itself will develop the second, third, and fourth steps that may be necessary. So let us, above all things, remember this, that whatever the one point is that we can remember, put it into practice. Now, of the entire message as it has come through in these 3 weeks, I would say that this point is the most important. That there is no such thing as demonstration until we gain the consciousness of the demonstration. Think about that. Think about that. You cannot have a demonstration made out here in space. You cannot have a demonstration appear out of nothingness. You cannot have a demonstration of any form of good appear by any, shall we say, blind faith, ignorance of truth. No, there is only one way in which demonstrations appear, and that is through understanding, which means an awareness or consciousness of the truth. And therefore, the consciousness of truth constitutes the substance of which all demonstrations are made. In other words, the things which do appear are made of those things which are invisible. Now, if I make much of this point, it is because I consider it the most important point that has been brought out in this 3 weeks of work. And the reason is this, that I have found in the metaphysical field that the idea of demonstration is well defined, but that the cause of the demonstration is not so well known. We are all accustomed to testimonies of healing and of supply and of happy relationships. We are not so accustomed to hearing what brought about the demonstration of health or wealth or good relationships. And yet, what good is it to know that a person became wealthy if we don't know how? What difference does it make to know that some people became healthy, but we don't know how? What difference does it make to know that there are people who have enjoyable human relationships and yet not know how they attained it? Because for us to go and do likewise means that we must also have the understanding. Now, the essence of all truth is that there must be a consciousness of truth. There must be an awareness before there can be an outer demonstration in any way, shape, manner, or form. That consciousness of truth takes place within you, and it is for this reason that no one who merely sits back and waits for something to happen will have very much in the way of spiritual harmony appear. It is true, there are many people in the world who have physical health without any awareness of truth. There are certainly many people who have physical wealth with no awareness of truth. But that physical health and physical wealth, as you know, is subject to change without notice. Anything can come and destroy that health or that wealth without even a moment's notice to give you a chance to get out from under. It is only as we come into the spiritual awareness of health and wealth that we can attain permanent harmony, that which we call life eternal. There is a way to have life eternal and to have an abundance of all good. And that way is by knowing the truth. As I brought out this morning, know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Free of the limitations of sense. Free of the entangling alliances of sense. Free of the mortal beliefs. But until there is an activity of truth in your consciousness and mine, our outer world remains just what it has always been. Now, there must be an activity of truth in your consciousness and mine in order that we may show forth the glory of God, that we may show forth harmony, wholeness, completeness, perfection, spiritual good, eternality, immortality, that we may enjoy justice, mercy, kindness, love, truth from all of the world. And so, in order that this activity of truth may take place in your consciousness, you must begin somewhere, and you must begin at that place of your understanding at this moment. I want to first of all explain that term, activity of truth in your consciousness, because it has two meanings. The activity of truth in your consciousness begins with the truth that you know. For instance, if at this moment you were called upon instantly for some truth, and the only one you could remember was I and the Father are one, that would be enough. And you would begin by knowing that truth, that I and the Father are one. Now, you just wouldn't go on repeating that statement, I and the Father are one, since that would be the vain repetition that we're warned against. Just repeating I and the Father are one will do nothing more nor less than hypnotize you into some kind of a belief that may give you a temporary sense of good and a harder knock when you wake up tomorrow. Now, when I speak of the activity of truth in your consciousness, I mean that you start with the statement, I and the Father are one, if that's the one that has come into your mind. Well, let's take another one that comes into my mind right now. He performeth that which is given me to do. He performeth that which is given me to do. Now, I wouldn't repeat that over and over and over again. I wouldn't repeat it even if I were tempted to do it. I would resist the temptation to indulge in vain repetition. But I would take that statement, He performeth that which is given me to do, and then I would say, wait a minute, what does it mean? He performeth. That He, that must mean God. He performeth. Certainly, elsewhere in Scripture we read, He that is within me is greater than he that is in the world. And so it's this He that is within me that performeth that which is given me to do. Well, now wait a minute. I have been given a task of conducting a class or giving a lecture for the next half hour. And according to this statement, He that is within me actually performs that job that was given me to do. Well, then, where do I figure in? Well, probably I've got to be obedient and get up there on that platform. And then I've got to turn my thought to God in the sense of, well, here I am, Father. Let's begin. And then I probably have to open my mouth, and by that time, He takes over. He that is within me. He that is going to really perform the activity of giving this lesson. And so I have the divine confidence that assures me, don't be concerned up there. This isn't your task. This is mine. I'm the He within you that's doing this. You just stand there and let it come out. He performeth that. God performs that which is given me to do, and it will be well done if only I can be still enough and let it come through. Now you see, that is the first half of the work. That is the first half of the activity of truth in my consciousness. In other words, I took the one statement of truth that came to me, and I allowed it to become active within me, and I allowed it to unfold from one statement to another, not knowing where it was going, where it would lead, just letting one statement after another come out. And now, having done that and feeling, well, I'm pretty well assured now comes the second part of the activity of truth in my consciousness, and that's the part where I get very still and let the Father impart truth to my consciousness. In other words, not the truth that I voice, but the truth that I hear. The first half of activity of truth in consciousness is the truth that I know and the truth that I voice. And the second half of the activity of truth in my consciousness is the truth that the Father knows, the truth that the Father imparts to me. That, of course, you recognize is the Word of God. That's the Word of God that comes to me, and it is quick, and it is sharp and powerful. Never doubt it, that the Word of God that comes to me is quick and sharp and powerful, and it does its work. Well, now, in the same way, let us assume that we have a day ahead of us in which we are going to meet a lot of people. Might be tradesmen, might be business people, might be social, might be family, but we know we have a busy day ahead of us of meeting people. And so there's no use just getting up and going out and meeting them, hitting headlong into the human being here and there, some good, some bad, some in good temper, some in bad mood, some honest, some dishonest. There's no use of going right out and hitting into that and hoping to buck through and come out on the top side. No, there's a better way, and that is through knowing the truth. And so we begin with some truth that will come to us as we know that we're going out to meet a lot of people. And I feel the first thing that comes to me is that there's only one mind, and that's God, and that's the mind of everybody I'm going to meet, so that I'm not going to meet with anything except intelligence, wisdom, right on top of it, rushing almost so fast I can't speak it. I'm told that love is the uniting element of all beings, that love is the quality of the Father that permeates our human relationships. Well, if God is the mind of man, and love is its outstanding nature, then in associating with each other, in meeting with each other, in doing business with each other, we are dealing with the mind of God and the divine love with which it permeates its children. Isn't that wonderful? And it's marvelous to realize that in meeting with each other, we are meeting only with the mind of God, and the only thing that is emanating from the mind of God, the only thing coming forth from the mind of God to us and from us, is its major quality, which is love. Oh, if we could just ponder that now for the next 5 minutes and see what that means, really to know that nobody out here has anything but the mind of God, and thereby they understand every word I'm saying, they understand it, they respond to it, they appreciate it, and because love is its major quality, they love it. They don't only love it, they love me. Out of the mind of God can only come love. And if no one in this room has anything but the mind of God, no one in this room has anything but the quality and activity of love. But just see what kind of a feeling I'm inspired with then as I meet all the people of my day knowing that God is their mind and that love is the only quality with which they have been imbued. Oh, now, in the beauty even of that thought, I could sit for the next 5, 10, 15 minutes just reveling in the wonderful relationship that must exist between all of us as we meet on that kind of a basis. But then, that is only the first half of the activity of truth in our consciousness. Now, having thought all of that wonderful thing and those wonderful thoughts, now we turn and say, Father, now you think or know the truth in me. You know the truth in me. I will listen. Speak, thy servant heareth. Then pretty soon some wonderful impartation comes to us from the Father. And when it does, the activity of truth has taken over our day. Well, everyone at some time or other is faced with some situation of economic lack or other. And so it would be natural that at some time in the day or during the week or month that the subject of money or the subject of lack of money or insufficiency might come to our thought. Or if we're in business, the idea of lack of business might come in. Anyhow, the thought of lack would somewhere pop up during our day or week. And here again, there must be an activity of truth in consciousness before there can be a change in the outer situation. And so our thought now goes to the subject of not lack, heaven forbid, but abundance. And the first miracle, the first thing that I see right in my mind's eye is the fact that there wouldn't be a blade of grass in all of the earth if there wasn't a God power to put it there. I see it so clearly, even while I'm standing here talking to you, that there couldn't be a piece of fruit on a tree or a vegetable in the ground if there weren't a God power, an intelligent power and a loving power to give it impetus, to place it there, to grow it, to develop it, to bring it to maturity, to bring it into readiness for harvesting. Why, I see that so clearly that the poet was right when he said, only God can make a tree. Why, only God could make a man, woman, or child. Only God could grow a blade of grass. Only God could make a shade tree. Only God could make an apple tree. Only God could put the fish in the sea and the birds in the air. Only God could have arranged the sunshine and sunlight to bless the crops in the ground. Only a God could have provided rain for moisture. Only a God could have given us this setup that we take so lightly under the term of agriculture, farming, herding. Only God could have given us that setup, and without God it cannot prosper. Without God it cannot mature. Without God it cannot be enduring. Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Yes, I know. Just with human intelligence you can develop a herd of cattle and wonderful farms. And just watch what has happened to the thousands and thousands of people who have tried to run their farms and their ranches and their orchards without God. And you'll see them. You'll see them. Except the Lord build a house, they labor in vain that build it. And so I see that if God is the source of all of this supply in the ground, and I'm sure only God could have thought up rotting the trees and making coal. I'm sure only God could have thought up whatever he did in the ground that caused oil to be down there that drives our machinery. I'm sure man could never have dreamed up such a concoction. God alone, in its infinite wisdom and divine love, has provided for us the infinite bounties of life. And sometimes we sit down to a breakfast, lunch, or dinner and eat it in our usual 10 or 15 minutes and rush off without a single solitary thought, not only of who cooked it in the kitchen, but how the food got on this earth in the first place. And there too, you see, we lose our demonstration. Acknowledge him in all thy ways, and he will give thee all there is to be had. And so as the thought of lack or limitation tries to come into my thought goes out to the amount of blades of grass in a lawn, to the sands, the grains of sands on the oceans of time. And I think of the infinity of stars, and the infinity of apple blossoms, and the infinity of roses, and the infinity of all of the fruit and vegetables and fish and birds. I think of the infinity of rain and sunshine, and how can lack or limitation dwell in a consciousness filled with the infinity of God's abundance and the recognition of God as its source. And so you see what happens just from that basic thought that came in of God producing a blade of grass. All the rest of this naturally follows, and that constitutes the activity of truth in my consciousness up to the first half. From there on I say, well, Father, I've certainly had some wonderful thoughts, but now it's your turn, because your thoughts are not my thoughts. Your thoughts are far greater than mine, so from now on, I'm listening. And we'll soon find that God will avail itself of the opportunity to express itself to us. And that will be the second half of the activity of truth in our consciousness. And you can be assured that the activity of that truth in our consciousness is going to appear outwardly as more blades of grass. It will multiply the loaves and fishes. What will? The activity of truth in my consciousness. But the activity of truth must have two ways. It must be the activity of the truth that I think and declare, and then it must be the activity of truth that God declares to me, within me. Is that clear? Yes. And remember this. Every day that you let go over your head without thinking these constructive thoughts, without realizing these immortal truths of God's government, God performing that which is given me to do, God producing the infinity of supply, God providing the inspiration for every idea. Every day that you let go over your head without conscious realization of these spiritual divine truths just takes you one day nearer the end of nothingness. Only those are alive who are alive in truth. The others are the unburied dead. Only those are alive who are alive in truth, in God. Only those are alive who are alive in their consciousness of the fact that God is the only law. God is the only substance, the only spirit, the only soul. God is all there is governing this universe. God is all there is to our existence. Without God, we are the unburied dead. We're just walking around, eating meals a day, sleeping hours a night, That's not living. That's vegetating. But the individual alive in God, the individual who actually recognizes God in all his ways, recognizes that God is his very mind, the intelligence of his being, and that without God there would be no intelligence. Without God there would be no love. Without God there would be no life. Without God there would be no supply. Just think if you took the God energy out of this world, what a wilderness it would appear to be. Not even grass would grow. Probably not even deserts could burn. There wouldn't be sun there to burn them. Oh no. Remove God from this earth and you have barrenness multiplied. And don't forget this. Remove God from your life or mine and you've got that same wilderness. Without God, we are the tree cut down and laid flat on the ground instead of being rooted and grounded in the earth. Without God, we are nothing. But there is no event of our day, from rising in the morning until the next morning, there is no event of our day which cannot be improved, spiritualized, made harmonious, healthy, and whole by God. There is no event that cannot be immortalized, that cannot be improved by God. It is possible humanly to have a certain measure of health, wealth, and happiness. There is no way to have real health, wealth, and happiness except as it is animated by the Spirit of God. If so be the Spirit of God dwell in you, then are ye the children of God. Those who have not the Spirit of God dwelling in them cannot please God. And you know what the Spirit of God means? We have truth for a synonym for God, and we have consciousness for a synonym for Spirit, and so we have the consciousness of truth. And so, if you haven't the consciousness of truth dwelling in you, you cannot please God. If you haven't the awareness of truth, you are not under the law of Spirit. You are not under divine grace. You are just under a law of human averages. I told you in a previous talk here last year that most people in the world are just a law of averages. They're just the average age and the average health and the average wealth and the average birth certificate and then the average death certificate. They're just a law of averages. They're not really spiritual beings with the life of God flowing in them. They're just an average. They're going to have an average amount of accidents and an average amount of sickness and an average age to die in. Oh, let's come out from being averages and let us come into our immortality and our eternality and our youth and our vitality and our strength, our health, our harmony, our wholeness, and our wealth, completeness, perfection. But believe me, when I quote the Master, that it can't be done except in our oneness with God. It cannot be done in any other way, since I, of my own self, am nothing. I, of my own self, can do nothing. It is only in my oneness with God that I can forgive sins, that I can raise the dead, heal the sick, and preach the gospel. Only through oneness with God. Otherwise, we are tinkling cymbals, aren't we? Just pieces of brass, nothingness. Now let us remember this, that out of this 3 weeks of work, I have gained myself the outstanding fact, the outstanding truth, that all of my daily experience is proportionate to the activity of truth in my consciousness. The activity of truth that I think and the activity of truth that God reveals within me. Do not forget, there are 2 points to this activity of truth and consciousness, and you cannot do away with either one of them. You cannot do without both of them. Probably in the years to come, when we've grown so into the habit of never making a move without a conscious thought of God, probably then it will not be necessary for us to rehearse these truths to ourselves. We'll just open the ear right from the start and let God talk to us. But you'll find that for quite some time to come, it will be very helpful to make use of both halves of this idea of the activity of truth and consciousness appearing outwardly as demonstration. Now, there's a second point that I caught more clearly than I have ever seen it before. It became more real to me, I suppose that's the way we would say it. And that is this, that there is no such thing as a demonstration separate and apart from God, which is really the substance of the demonstration. In other words, I saw clearly, more clearly than ever, that you cannot get a business or a home or a companion or friends separate and apart from getting God. That's what I've seen so clearly this trip. That since God is the substance of friendships and companionships, since God is the substance of homes and supply and crops even, and transportation, since there is no such thing as a thing or person separate from God, there is no way to get thing or person separate from God, and therefore the only way to attain them is to get God. And in having God, infinite good, one has every form of good. Probably the way that was stated, it sounds a little complicated, but it really isn't. It merely means that in attaining an awareness of God, a consciousness of God's presence, you attain every form that God appears as. God being infinite, God appears as sun, moon, stars, rain. God appears as vegetation. God appears as mountains and valleys and rivers. God appears as man, woman, and child. And therefore, when you attain a consciousness of God, you attain man, woman, child, mountains and valleys, hills and slopes, crops, and all the things of life. In His presence there is fullness. I've read somewhere, haven't I? In His presence there is fullness. Well, that's the essence of what I am saying. You see how He performeth that which is given me to do? He gave me that word. In His presence there is fullness. In His presence. Therefore, don't be concerned with fullness. Don't be concerned with the demonstration of anything or any body or any thought. Be concerned with His presence. And you'll find that as you stand in His presence, you are in the presence of fullness, because it's only in His presence that we can find fullness. Therefore, the demonstration of the realization of God must be our only demonstration, and therefore I see more clearly than ever that the use of the word demonstration to us is rank error, except when it is used as the demonstration of God's presence, or demonstration of the realization of God, or demonstration of the awareness of God, or demonstration of the Christ. In that sense, we may use the word demonstration frequently. But in the sense of demonstrating a piano, or demonstrating an automobile, or demonstrating a wife, or demonstrating a divorce, it's very bad language. Let us demonstrate the presence of God and find that in His presence there is fullness. And therefore, my second point, major point of realization that comes to me, is that we must attain the realization or consciousness of God's presence. And only in that realization or attainment can we find the fullness. I am come that ye might be fulfilled. But you see, how are you going to have fulfillment without the I? So therefore, there's no use of demonstrating fulfillment. Let us demonstrate the presence of the I, and then you'll find that I am come that ye might be fulfilled. Now, how would you demonstrate fulfillment separate and apart from the demonstration of the realization of the I? You follow that? You must have a realization of I before you can have fulfillment. The statement or declaration that I am come that ye might be fulfilled, repeat that 1,000 times and you'll be empty. Repeat it 1,000,000 times and you'll be still more empty. The statement will do nothing. It is the realization of the presence of I that does the fulfilling. None of these statements of truth, repeated over and over and over and over again, will do anything for you in and of themselves. An occasional reminder of them within your own being will stir them up into active expression. So don't think that by much repetition that you'll bring it about, but by reminding yourself now and then of any truth of Scripture, and then pondering that quotation and letting it lead you and your thought where it will, you are making truth active in your consciousness, and that truth will be the I that fulfills itself. Well, if only we can catch the importance of these two steps, these 2 points in our development, they themselves will lead to our being reminded of all the other truths that have been voiced here in these 3 weeks. I'm going to leave you today with just those 2 points for consideration, but I think that before we stop, we should have a meditation and let this really and truly sink in to our consciousness. Listen, when you sit down to meditate, I know that when you hear this at first, you're going to say, yes, that's all right for you, but not for me. But I wasn't interrupted in that meditation for me, I was interrupted for you. When you sit down to meditate, please forget that there's a world outside of you and that you have any obligations in that world. Treat the world as if you were leaving it and you weren't sure when you were coming back or if you ever were coming back. Leave that world outside. If you have to take the telephone off the receiver, do it. If you have to refuse to pay attention to your human obligations, do it. You will never sacrifice a human obligation in your whole experience without gaining spiritual blessings that will more than compensate for it. So if you have to refuse to listen to the next 5 telephone calls that want to come into your home, or if you have to keep the neighbors out for the next hour or two, even if their feelings get hurt and they decide to break friendship with you, be assured there will be a spiritual blessing that will compensate. Do not let anything come in to mar your period of meditation. Do not just sit into that meditation as if you never again were going to go to work. You never again were going to cook a meal. You never again were going to assume a human obligation until God speaks within you and you feel the divine presence. You're uninterested in the world. You become disinterested in everybody. And watch what miracle can take place in your life once you completely overcome the world so thoroughly that you say, I will not permit anything to come between me and my God thoughts for this next whatever period you have set. 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 1 hour, 20 minutes, 15 minutes. But whatever it is, set your amount of minutes, keep the world out, and determine you're going to forget the world. You're going to forget the world until this thing has been consummated within you. Remember this. You'll never lose anything at all in life if you lose all of the human world as it exists today. You won't lose a thing. If you lose husband and wife and child and parent, you won't lose a thing if you find the kingdom of God. If you feel the feel of the Spirit of God in you, there isn't a single thing, there isn't all the world together that could be lost without your gain. The Master puts it in graphic words, unless you lose your life, you cannot find it. Unless you can drop this human sense of existence with its duties, its obligations, its binding mortal material ties, and find your oneness with God, then all that you've got is meaningless. But if you lost the world and gained this awareness of God, your world would be restored to you as it was to Job. Someday, everybody will understand the story of Job. And they'll know that the only reason that everything was restored to Job multiplied was that he had first lost it all. We don't have to wait for it to be taken for us. We can voluntarily give it up. We can go, we could set aside 1 hour sometime every day or night. Oh, we might go to sleep at 10 o'clock at night and say, I'm going to get up and give 2 to 3 in the morning to it, or 3 to 4 in the morning. But take that hour and say, this is God's, and I don't care if the whole world collapses. I'm answering no human obligation. I'm giving up this world and going into God for this hour. When your world is restored to you, it will be given back to you multiplied as Job's world was given back to him. It will be multiplied. But first, leave mother and brother and sister and father, all of these, for my sake. Leave this whole world at some period of the day and let them get along without you. If there's a God, they will. If there isn't a God, what difference does it make? You can trust this world to God for an hour while you get busy. You take care of it. That's a promise. Oh, take this time. Take this period of shutting out the world. Don't let your telephone bell ring. don't do it. And if it rings, let it ring. It can't have any news half as important as the news God has. And if you miss what God has to say, you'll miss it a whole lot more than if you miss what the telephone has to say. I don't know why I'm saying this to you, because it didn't come from me. I was through when I sat down to meditate. But you remember what happened at the beginning? The Father was to perform that which was given me to do. And you see how well the Father does it. If the Father has something to say to you, even though I don't know it, the Father will take care that it is said. And that could only happen for one reason, that when I sit down to meditate, I shut out the world. I don't think of you, and I don't think of me, and I don't think of my problems or your problems. I sit there, even if it's only for 1 minute, and I'm completely cut off from the world. I'm only interested in one thing, and that's the Father within me. And it's because I'm so completely shut off and not even interested in you. I'm only interested in the Father, that when the Father has something to say to you, I am a vehicle or avenue or messenger for its deliverance. Do you see that? This has been a concrete instance of the very treatment that we started with, that He performeth that which is given me to do. Evidently, it was given me to get this message of leaving the world, and I didn't know it. And so the Father did it for me, through me. Thank you until tonight.
Dear friends, this is Joel in Honolulu. I have just edited this tape, and I know that there are certain spots in which you are going to experience difficulty in hearing. There is a hum that runs throughout the tape that probably got there while the tape was being made, or rather while the recording was being made. And then there are points where my voice drops. But I would like you to know this, that during this hour on the platform recording this tape, I was completely in the Spirit. And if you listen, and if you close your eyes so that you may see, you will actually experience God. You will actually witness God working in and through me. Even in hearing this tape played back out here in Hawaii, I could actually see and feel the God working in me on that platform. And I know that this experience awaits you too, if you can just rise above the mechanical difficulties of this particular tape. Personally, I feel that this New Washington series is an important contribution to our work. Bless you, and aloha, Joel.